How you doing, Amanda?
I'm good. Thank you so much for chatting. It's good to catch up. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
I'm great. I'm great. Yeah, it's always good to catch up with you. Thank you for, for taking the time to speak to me on today's episode of Streams of Thought. This is, like I said before, it's a two-way conversation. I mean, you can ask me whatever you feel, and
Oh,
it should be really natural and organic.
awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
So for I mean, I obviously know who you are, and when I think of resilience and drive and focus, when I think of overcoming the odds and rising from tragedy to triumph, um, I think of fearlessness. You're definitely one of the people who comes to mind. I feel you're a shining example for young people and for women and for people of color. And you're one of our generation's transcendent figures. But for someone who may not be familiar with, who you are, who are you?
Well, that's such a kind introduction, Tariq. I honestly, the way that I think of myself is as a civil rights astronaut. I know that that sounds really quirky, but my
No, it
background's in
makes perfect sense.
yeah. My background's in astrophysics. That's what I studied. I was at NASA. I want to be an astronaut, but unfortunately, like so many people, 1.3 billion women around the world, I am a survivor of sexual assault. I was raped during my last semester at Harvard.
Wow.
And I remember walking into, my local area rape crisis center, and there weren't enough seats for us in the waiting room. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if I have resources and I'm still struggling so hard, to fight for my rights, to even learn the basic information that's out there, then what are people who don't have my resources, what are they doing?
Mm.
And so that's when I became an activist. So for the past 6 years now, I founded an organization. It's called Rise,
Nice,
and
yeah.
we have been around the world advocating for civil rights for sexual violence survivors. That's what we do day to day.
Wow. And where were you born here in the States?
Yeah, so my parents were boat refugees from Vietnam,
Wow.
and I was born in California, but that heritage has really left me with, who I am today, which is an unabashed, uh, determination for freedom, and really never taking for granted what that means.
Mm,
That's why I ended up being who I am.
right. And
Yeah.
how do you pronounce your last name? Your last name is Vietnamese.
Yes, it is. So the Vietnamese way of saying it, which no one can say, is Nguyen. But I go by Win.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Rightfully so.
yeah.
Uh, so when I sometimes when people make mention of the Roots, that they refer to us as the hardest working band in show business, and I've said this to you before. When I speak with you, when I think about all that you've accomplished, I feel as though I've got just so much more to do. You know what I mean? I feel like I haven't really, I've been wasting my time.
Oh, please.
You're still under 30 years old, right?
I am.
Wow, wow.
Yeah, I'm
And
28.
28 years old. And what have you accomplished thus far?
Well, there are a couple things. I think what I'm most known for is getting nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize
Right.
last year. And then there's some other things, Forbes 30 and 30, Time 100, foreign policy, other stuff. But actually what
Mhm.
I'm most proud of, beyond the 30 laws that I've written and passed with my team, is, the people that I get to fight this fight with every day, my
Yeah.
teammates at Rise. So all of them came from different backgrounds, Some of them didn't have a political background. They just came because they wanted to do something. And then they ended up being a part of this movement and then penning their own rights into existence. That's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, wow.
What are you most proud of?
Yeah, I guess I'm most proud of my body of work.
Yeah.
I'm proud of, always being able to speak my truth, and up to this point, I've never had to bite my tongue. I've never really had to self-censor, and yeah, I feel like I occupy a very unique space in that I'm able to still talk about the things that I talk about, socio-political mindedness of my material, and for that to be accepted, and for me to still enjoy some level of I mean, I've had a long career, so I mean, I know very many artists, more artists, more often than not. When you speak, truth to power in the way that I have for my whole career, you don't have very long to do so. So I've been blessed in that way, and I guess that's what I'm most proud of. My legacy as a writer and as an artist, and just being uncompromised.
That's incredible. Actually, even if we weren't recording this, I wanted to ask for your advice, just heart to heart, because I mean, I'm sure you've seen in the news, but there's a lot of xenophobia that's happening around the Asian community right now.
Yeah.
And as an activist, I'm working on the issues that I care about, but I'm also so aware that when I step into a room that I'm often the only Asian in a room, often the only person of color in a room.
And sometimes the only woman.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, there's this tension between, okay, well, you're at the table, so now you have a chance to fight for what you care about, but how do you, say it in a way that will get people to, it's like this dance that I keep having to do. It's code switching. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And honestly, in my personal life, I've had to go to art, to be able to get, those feelings out. And I was wondering, how do you navigate that space? Because you just, said that you have been able to speak this truth. And I think so many people, myself included, would love to know, how, any advice you have, how do you do that?
I think there is a certain level of code switching, that has to take place in order for you to sort of, once you have that seat at the table, people, speak different languages, and they're more likely to be, I don't want to say influenced, but people are more impressionable. You're more likely to get what it is that you want to say, what your message is, what your agenda may be across, if you present it in the most understandable language to the people that you're speaking with. So there's something to be said about just the subtle nuance. You know what I mean? It's a super subtle nuance, and it's delicate, often a delicate area, through which you have to sort of tread lightly. You know what I mean? But we sort of get through it, and I feel like the arts is a common denominator that can serve as just a common ground, because I feel like art, music, visual art, movement, written and spoken word, it's all a universal language, so I feel like mastery, being able to perfect one's craft in those fields might put more, I don't know, give you more tools, sort
Yeah.
of, you know what I mean, in your wheelhouse, to move forward in that way. But yeah, you know, it's an everyday struggle, you know what I mean? And I was going to ask you about, you know, the whole xenophobia and what you've been experiencing with regards to the current world crisis, and you know, just people operating from a place of misinformation and you know, disinformation, and you know, what your take on that sort of was.
Yeah, I mean, it's been heartbreaking, you know, and it's happening everywhere. And I have personal friends who have been affected. You know, a lot of my friends are actually healthcare professionals, so they're doctors, they're nurses, and sometimes I hear them come back with stories telling me that their patients refuse to be treated by them because they're Asian.
Wow.
And I think there's this collective trauma that we are trying to get through right now. And now more than ever, it is so important for everyone, no matter what their community is from, to step up and say that we are all in this together and that racism is wrong. And that's not only of other people to the Asian community, that's also of Asian folks being able to say that about how, for instance, China has been treating Black people in China, right? So it's really about all of us saying, no, racism is bad, and it's something that we all have to, again, be a part of stopping.
I agree. So yeah, so 30 laws you've had passed into legislature. And in what period of time has that taken place over?
Yeah, our average is a law a month. So just over these several years. It makes us the most successful legislative reform movement in modern US history.
Wow. And are they all laws, bills that have been passed with regards to women's rights and, you know, sexual assault, or, you know, what
the majority of them is, there's one that's on gun violence, and that's because we worked with the survivors, allies, and community members in Parkland. But the best part is that, again, it's people from their own communities who pass these laws. Look, there's a profit model in Washington where, you know, for a buck or a lot, you can pay these lobbyists, and, you know, they will arrange these meetings for you with senators, and then maybe things will work out. But the problem with that is then money becomes, well, the only means, or the most effective means, by which you can access democracy. And I think a lot of people right now, even before this pandemic, felt like their voices didn't matter. They felt like, well, the options for democracy is voting or marching, and what else is there? And there is actually so much more. You know, this government, America, is of the people, by the people, for the people. It is meant for us. We have that constitutional right to petition our government. And I hope that people really internalize that, because those public servants are just that, serving us. And so we have every right to demand that they listen to our voices and to pen our own rights into existence. You can absolutely write your laws for your own community, because that's what our democracy is for.
Right. Wow. Man, so who do you I guess this is still on subject. Who do you look up to? Do you have sort of you know, the people always ask me, you know, who's your top 5, who are your favorite artists of all time, to sort of influence, you know, what it is that you do. You know, who are your top 5 most influential minds?
Well, Harriet Tubman is my favorite of all time. She's such a badass. But Ocean Vuong is an incredible Vietnamese American writer, and his poetry is so beautiful. I mean, obviously you, Tariq.
Get out of here.
In my opinion, best lyricist alive on this planet Earth right now.
Oh, wow.
It's just my opinion, and like the majority. And, you know, there's obviously Sally Ride.
Mm.
I want to be on Mars, if not the first person on Mars. And that's
Yeah.
something that I still work towards every day. And then there are folks just are in my own life. Astronaut Leland Melvin, he's incredible. He was actually in the NFL before he became an astronaut. And, you know, he just proves that you can really be anything that you want to be.
Right.
Who are yours?
I mean, I don't know. You know, if I'm talking lyricists, I just had this conversation a few days ago with actually on someone else's podcast. I guess you know, just creatively with regards to lyricism, you know, Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, Cool G Rap, KRS-One, and probably Chuck D of Public Enemy. A bunch of artists who you probably never heard of.
That is true. I am nodding my head, and I will go look them up after.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, these are young guys, and I feel like sometimes I disappoint people because they're, you know, they wish that I were more influenced by my contemporaries or, you know, folks who sort of came after me. But I'm not. You know, I've learned to do what I do, you know, because of what those who sort of came before me did. And that's what I stick to. You know what I mean? I feel like there's you know, I'm able to take broad strokes within that. Like there's enough range within, you know, my creative parameter where I don't need to necessarily borrow from. I feel like that's where some legendary artists sort of fall off. It's like, wow, how did that guy who was so great fall off? And like, when did the quality of, you know, their music sort of get compromised? And I feel like that's the slippery slope begins when you start trying to approximate what, you know, the younger generation or people who were influenced by you, when you start trying to approximate what it is that, you know, they're doing. I feel like it's almost like, you know, you cancel out, you know, by default, you cancel out your own influence in some way. So yeah, I just try not to do that. My top five, and I don't flip flop with it. You know, I don't have like, you know, a top five based on what day it is. You know, some folks, if you ask them, it's like, today my top five is, you know, X, Y, Z. If you ask me on Wednesday, that may change. I feel like, you know, that is my ride or die top five. Now, you know, if you ask me for different reasons, you know, who I think is, you know, the best rapper or the best artist or the best producer, you know, today or from a specific era or in a specific sort of genre, then that may change. But yeah, that's sort of where I am with it. That being said, speaking of your friend who you know who became an astronaut after the NFL.
Yeah.
You know, for someone who's in the field of, I guess, primarily science, but who also advocates for social and civil justice, how do you switch gears in that way? Like, you know, how do you go from strength to strength? And what for you is success in those areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, science to me is, and it's going to sound so nerdy, but it is a love of mine, and it's actually a break. It's a really nice break from politics and from
Wow.
activism. Like, if I want to just meditate, I go and I take my telescope out and I look at stars. Or I just shift through data and I try to find a planet. I know that sounds so ludicrous, but literally discovering planets, one of the most common ways is to, well, look at the data that these telescopes have given you and try to track patterns. So it's kind of, it's not mindless, but it's almost, you know, like an automatic, like, you know, so it's really a way for me to relax. But I think when I wake up, the burning question that I have is, what is my place in the universe and what am I going to do about it? And I think both astrophysics and activism answers that question, right? And so to me, you know, science is actually, it's not only about like hard facts and data. There's this philosophical side of it. That's not a word, whatever.
I mean, yeah, pronunciation, but it's all good.
Oh, thanks. But you know, it's this idea that when you look up into the sky, right? All of the lights that you see are actually the past. And it's because light takes time to reach your eye.
Mm.
And when you're looking at that past, those lights to me make me feel both so humble, but also so special, right? That photon from that star traveled billions of years to reach my eye. And we are but a blink in the universe, but we are able to not only be alive, but to be cognizant, to feel, and to create this change around us. If we want to create change around the world, if we want to make art, if we want to make the anthem of movements, we can. And I think that's so special. And so for me, sometimes it's switching gears, and that's really nice. And sometimes they're blended. They're one and the same. And it's just about things that bring me joy, you know? Yeah. What is the burning question that you have when you wake up? Like, what is your soul trying to answer?
Man, my soul, I don't even think my burning question is that deep.
It's okay.
You know, but I guess
I'm hungry. That's my burning question.
Yeah. I guess when I wake up, you know, the question that my soul, I often question my purpose. You know, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why was I put here? Why, have I made it as survived as long and made it, as far, as I have. I know so many people who, I mean, I've lost so many friends and relatives, and more often than not at a super young age. And, so I sort of question, what is my greater purpose? Is there a greater purpose that I serve? I often ask myself, what's in a name? My name, it has many meanings, but all of which speak to leadership and guidance and, shining a light upon something, or awakening, or, you know what I mean? So those are all of the questions that I ask myself. I don't know if I ask myself this stuff as soon as I wake up. I wouldn't call it a burning question, but this is like, just sort of the lifelong, my journey to truth is to, answer those questions, and that's in my art. That's what I try to speak to,
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what is something else that we, you and I have spoken about before. What is overview syndrome?
Oh yeah. Yes.
The overview effect.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this. So when astronauts go up into space for the first time, many of them experience this psychological effect, documented in psychiatric literature as the overview effect. And it's seeing Earth for the first time. It's seeing this pale blue dot, and everything that's ever lived or died is on this dot. And it's essentially an existential crisis. But also what it is a shock to your perspective, that why are we fighting? We're all in this together. And astronauts describe leaving Earth as technicians, but returning to Earth as humanitarians, wanting to show politicians, show people that we have so much more in common, and also how fragile Earth is and how special Earth is. And that overview effect, I think, is something that we could all use today.
Wow. Yeah. Have you done any counseling on the overview effect?
No, but I really think that it can absolutely be applied. That perspective of taking a step back, or taking a rocket ship to take a step back, is astonishing. A lot of the Apollo astronauts in particular, the people who, walked on the moon and were able to look at Earth from the moon, had this effect as well, where it's awe-inspiring in the word as defined as awesome, as in having an inspiring, a little bit of fear, but also like incredible amazingness. And I wish that all of us would remember we all have that inside of us too. It's not only that perspective, but we are all stardust, right? That's not like a corny phrase. It's literally like the way that mass was created within our solar system was because of stars and them combusting. So we have that in us. And that, you know, if we want to, we can absolutely achieve it, whatever it is that we want to.
Wow. I feel like whenever I speak with you, I'm just always just like, wow.
I'm so glad. I mean, I feel the same way. So.
You know, there's been, since COVID-19 and this whole Corona crisis, along with folks being quarantined, there's been a rise in sexual assault, sexual violence, domestic violence. What is, if anything, I mean, I know there has to be something that RISE, your organization, is doing to you know, to address this.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. You know, obviously stay-at-home orders are very important. And on top of that, what that means is that, well, for some people, for many people, home actually isn't the most safe place for them to be. This pandemic has several ingredients that actually make it really dangerous for domestic violence survivors. You know, there's widespread job loss, there's financial instability, closed quarters in quarantine, feelings of isolation, and all of these exacerbate incidences of sexual violence. So we already have seen the data come in. In Hawaii, there have been reports of landlords pressuring tenants for sexual favors in exchange for rent. In Chicago, there was a tripling of sexual harassment reports as it related to housing. And I mean, in the United Kingdom, their hotlines calls raised by over 700%. So this is, I mean, it's something that's happening. And so to respond to this, our team at RISE has partnered with chefs, restaurants, grocery stores around the nation to create what's called Survivor Safe Haven. It's these flyers, let me show you. If a facility has one of these flyers, there's a code word, it's called Rise Up 19. Okay. And so if you see one of these flyers, what you will know is that if you say Rise Up 19 to a staffer, that they are trained to call the hotline and give you a safe place to take that call. And our first goal is getting survivors immediate resources, immediate help. But the second goal, which is just as important, is to let people know that they're not alone, that there's a community that's there for them, helping them should they need it.
Wow, that's so dope. When you're how do they even inform you when you're nominated for a Nobel Prize? How does that work? What's the process? And then, you know, what in your case specifically, what was the first thing you did? Like, how did you react? Who did you tell? I mean,
I was literally walking the streets of San Francisco with my luggage, hauling it down the street because I was meeting two of my friends, and I got a phone call, and it was from the United States Congress. So women from both the Democrat Party and Republican Party joined together, members of Congress, to nominate me. And when I got the phone call, it was like lightning struck me. I remember, I mean, it's life-shattering, in a good way. My eyes were dilating. I experienced vertigo, you know. I was like, oh my God. I remember right after too, calling my friend because I was like, Jen, I don't know where I am right now. Like, can you come get me? Because this thing just happened. I mean, it was both emotional and physical experience for sure. And I just felt overwhelmed with gratitude. You know, I had no idea that it would be where it was. All I did honestly was fight for my own rights in the beginning. Honestly, actually, in the beginning, it was anger. I'll just be really honest about that. I was so angry. And after a while, though, anger can fuel, but it can't sustain movements. Hope does that. And it was also this recognition that my story was not mine alone, that there were millions of people who also shared it. And that's what got me through. And so, you know, what started off as, well, being really mad at the criminal justice system, ended here. And I just want people to know that if you're going through a hard time, you know, keep on going, right? If you're going through hell, just keep on going, because why would you stay in hell? So just keep going. It'll be better.
Wow. And so you never really, it wasn't something that you aspired to.
No. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be on Mars. So,
First and foremost.
yeah.
And that is crazy. So yeah, you're, I guess, you know, social, civil rights activist, astrophysicist. Are you a rocket scientist?
No. So rocket scientists are engineers.
You're a rocket enthusiast.
So I do the science part. Do the exoplanets. Yeah.
You search, you find new planets and stars. What am I missing? Do you play a musical instrument?
I do. I play the piano. That's actually one of my outlets to also like meditate, self-care.
Okay. And are you classically trained at all? Or?
Yeah, I spent my childhood playing piano.
Interesting. This is interesting stuff. You're yeah, I mean, I don't, is there anything else like you accomplish more, but I guess what you are is, you know how they say, if this thing were a person, if accomplishing more by 5 a.m. than most people do in all day long were a person. That's you. That's crazy.
That's really sweet. That's really funny.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you even want to do? Like, I mean, you can sort of chill for, like, you've done it all.
I just want to be free.
Wow.
Yeah. And what I mean by that is, I want to be beyond, you know, free from violence, free from that, which is a huge part of it. I want to be free to have joy. And I try my hardest to live as authentically as I can, despite what everybody, by society, I mean, you know, these labels. And I think, honestly, you know, sometimes it can get really rough, and because politics is a contact sport. So it really, especially when you're talking about powerful people's political careers. And if there are egos invested in that, and if you are fighting a fight that can damage that, you can see, you know, the talons come out. But there's a difference between justice and freedom, to me, at least. I think justice is beyond the criminal justice system. Is a form of justice, but justice is something that is different to different people. Mm-hmm. But to be free, that's the real goal for me. Free of violence, free from fear, and free to be happy, to be whatever. You know, that pursuit of happiness is embedded within our Constitution. And that's one of the reasons why I'm still in this fight. You know, because I think that we as a people get the government that we fight for, that we have worked for. And at least in this document is enshrined this ability for us to keep that drum beating, that march towards progress, and the ability for us to pursue an ever more perfect union, you know, and freedom's up to every generation to define. That's what I want.
That's very powerful. That's powerful stuff. That's what I want too, man. Um, if folks want to keep up, with your movements and to support your cause, how would they do so? Like, where can they find you?
Yeah, so if you know a restaurant owner, grocery store owner, a part of the community that's operating right now that may be interested in Survivor Safe Haven, folks can go to risenow.us/COVID, and they can find the flyers there, download them. If you are an ally and you want to spread the news on social media, you can find it on risenow.us/COVID. Or you can just follow us on our social media. My name on Instagram is Amanda Nguyen. It's my full name. But you can check us out at Rise Now US on other social medias as well.
Thank you for that, and thank you for taking the time today, to speak with me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this has been a good one. This has been a really good one.
I'm so glad.
Some inspiration and motivation, and yeah, this has just been really good. So it was great catching up. I look forward to when we get to speak again. And this has been Streams of Thought.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.